Welcome to our parallel session. This is second session today. And first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Arya. I am economics lecturer from Universitas Diponegoro. Today, I have a great opportunity to conduct our parallel session because we have great speakers who will present their great work too. So, I want to introduce our speakers today. First is Pak Immanuel Satya Pekerti from Universitas Gadjah Mada. He will present his work, Preliminary Evaluation of PSBB and Transitional PSBB Effectiveness in DKI Jakarta. And the second paper, or the second presentation, will be presented Bapak Rimawan Pradiptyo and Mas Putu Arya Wigita from Universitas Gadjah Mada. They will present maintaining resiliency of the community during the pandemic COVID-19 by developing online-based social capital, a case of SONJO, Sambatan, Jogja. It is interesting because this is the social capital practice in Jogja. And the last speaker, Bapak Mansur Afifi from Universitas Mataram. He will present his works, Impact of COVID-19 on the economy of West Nusa Tenggara Province and government policy, the first semester of 2020 analysis. So let's get started. For our first speaker, Bapak Immanuel. Halo, Bapak.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for the opportunity, Mbak Rizka. Also, I would like to greet fellow presenters, and it's nice to see familiar faces, Pak Rimawan and Bli Arya. Yes, let me share my screen. Alright, today I will present my study titled The Preliminary Evaluation of Pembatasan Sosial Berskala Besar, or PSBB, and its transitional phase effectiveness in DKI Jakarta. The objective of this study is to provide an early evaluation of the effectiveness of the mobility restriction measure which has been implemented in DKI Jakarta since the beginning of the pandemic. Why? The rationale is, first of all, Jakarta is one of the pandemic epicenters. Jakarta is one among several places which the pandemic hits the hardest among the big cities in Indonesia. And the second, importance of Jakarta as center of political and economic activity means that when it's being hit by the pandemic, it might have a big multiplier, it might have a big following ramifications other than the pandemic itself. And third, quick evaluation of the mobility restrictions is needed. Speaking a little bit about this, I would like actually, this study is a little bit outdated since we have reached another phase of the pandemic, and the design of this study is only covering up until the September of last year. But nonetheless, I will present you the preliminary evaluation of the measure. The study asked whether the mobility restriction implemented has reduced the average force of infection, which we will discuss definition later in the presentation, of COVID-19 compared to the pre-implementation period. To answer this, research strategy is to employ a spatial method to a proper epidemiological model, which takes into account a spatial interaction between regions in Jakarta. All right. What we have known thus far about the mobility restriction, this is a common knowledge that the mobility restriction, some calls it lockdown, some calls it the quarantine, is one of the most common measures to combat the spread of COVID-19. Some studies found that such restrictions can generally reduce potential transmission. Moreover, the characteristics of these measure is that the effectiveness will increase along with the duration of implementation. The longer the measures is imposed, then the higher the effectiveness will be. And third, finding by Prem et al., proper timing on gradual reopening can still actually effectively reduce the case, which in this context we are concerned with the transitional phase of the PSBB. But premature and sudden lift of the restrictions can yield in the contrasting effect that is bring about the secondary peak. All right, for this study, I will use data provided by the provincial government of DKI Jakarta, which has done a good job in providing a rather good quality and well disaggregated data on the COVID record cases. The observations amounted to 6,003 observations, comprises of 261 kelurahan, apart from 7 kelurahan of Kepulauan Seribu, which this actually a concern of the methodology. The spatial interactions cannot properly measure the interactions. So this is the problem about the methodology. The spatial econometrics measures the interactions between regions. The problem is there is a difference, and this is still debatable. There's a difference in friction and in effort needed in traveling across a particular distance across land and across seas. So because of this, Kepulauan Seribu is separated from the Jakarta mainland. So we decided to separate the Kepulauan Seribu kelurahans. And the next one is the data spans from February 26th up until the September 2nd, which amounts to 23 weeks. So the COVID data is actually recorded in daily manner, but in this study we decided to aggregate the data into the weekly basis for some justification, for some reasons. First of all, the inaccuracy of case record. I found that in some observations, in actually many of the observations, has negative additional daily cases, which is impossible actually, because the calculation of the additional daily cases is simply by subtracting the cumulative positive cases of a particular day by the record on the day before. Aggregating the data will minimize the negative values, although not all of them. I still found some negative records, but this is relatively minor compared to the daily data record. And the estimation result can be more meaningful by aggregating the figures, meaning that there's only like 1 or 2 additional cases per kelurahan at that point of time, which will yield a very small estimated coefficient of the when we estimate it using the regression. All right, so on the methodology, usage of spatial econometrics usually accompanied by diagnostics on the spatial interactions. There is some measures we use, which is commonly used. First of all, the Moran's eye, the measure of global spatial autocorrelations. We found spatial autocorrelations, spatial autocorrelations in 9 out of 23 weeks. And we also employ other diagnostics, specifically for the spatial panel data setting, which found both spatial autocorrelation and heteroscedasticity, or in the technical term, is called the random regional effect. So this is a details on the Moran test. We find on the 9 out of 23 weeks. And this is the Baltagi-Songko test, which we found significant test results on the. Let me activate my pointer. On this is the LMU for the spatial autocorrelation, and this is the LM lambda for the random regional effect. All right, so this is the model I adapted from Höhle 2016. So this is the force of infection. Force of infection itself is defined by the number of infected cases divided by the susceptible individuals. So the susceptibles who are included in the susceptibles. Susceptibles are those who are not infected and those who are so among the population. The susceptible are the whole populations subtracted by the infected and the death. So this is the susceptible individuals, this is the infected individuals, and a note on this part that we have infected individuals in the neighboring regions, which in this context is the kelurahan. Additionally, we will add the the restriction measure, the PSBB and PSBB transition. We apply two different variables. First of all, the dummy variables for both these measures, and the second one is the week count of how long these measures have been implemented. I applied spatial Durbin error model, which means that this model also control spatial interaction, which is not included in the core model. This is the definition. Yeah, definition for susceptible individuals, definition for infected. And on the next slide, I will present the result. I will juxtapose, I will compare the core model with the robustness check in the following slide. Yes, the robustness checks will add some additional kelurahan characteristics added from the potential social vulnerability index, or IPKS, released by the BPS DKI Jakarta office. And here are the results. So we found generally significant estimation on the core model, which we are not we are less concerned about this, but we will turn into the our main interest variable of interest. So we found that PSBB in average reduce average force of infection by 1.4%, while transitional PSBB in average actually increase or have like higher value, higher average force of infection during the period of observation. And this is robust as we can compare it on the column 1 and column 3. It's robust both on the sign, on this, and on the significance. But we will turn to the second measure, which we will measure in weeks. We found that this is a less robust result. That PSBB, every additional implementation of PSBB will reduce the average force of infection by 0.15%, but this is not robust as we compare it with the fourth column. This is not significant, but the significant result is on the every additional imposition of transitional PSBB, we will found additional 0.4%, and this is even bigger, also a little bit on the robustness check. So we see that yeah, we can see the trend here. This is the discussion which I have said earlier on the figures. Yes, weak evidence on the PSBB, but rather strong evidence, and I think the result shows a rather worrying, concerning development. Although this we have passed the period for some months now. Yes, every week of transitional PSBB will actually increase. Is associated, not will actually increase, is associated with increasing average of force of infection. And yes, all variables of interest are robust with exception for PSBB implementation in weeks. So what are the takeaways from this study? The implementation of transitional PSBB as found by this study is rather counterproductive. I suspect that more lenient nature of the transitional PSBB resulted in population regarding certain health protocols since some shops are able to open, some offices can operate in a limited manner, and lack of control by authority to enforce health measures and protocols in response to reopening business and activities. Yeah. Okay. So this the finding is rather different from what we have discussed about what have we known about the mobility measure. The finding by Science et al. Found that additional week of mobility measure restriction help bolster the effectiveness of the measure. While we don't find it here, I suspect that decreasing public obedience over time balances out the increasing effect of the restriction measure. Also, I I found another possible explanation that reduced public compliance is possible if there is lack of trust and confidence in how government handles the pandemic or other type of crisis. The policy implication is I found that it is a proper decision to reevaluate and reformulate the transitional PSBB, the gradual reopening of the PSBB. The imposition of PSBB on 14 September, which we have seen, is deemed a rather a right move, is the right policy. And yes, that concludes my presentation. Although this is going to be published in the book, I still expect various feedbacks from the audience, or if you don't have the opportunity to ask or give your inputs here, please do reach me through my email. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mbak Ariska.
Thank you, Bapak Immanuel, Satya. Great presentation and great work from your paper. So we have to move to next section, Q&A section. So anyone if you want to ask directly to Bapak Immanuel, please raise your hand or just directly turn on your microphone. Anyone? So I want to discuss a little bit for DKI Jakarta because I have been here for the pandemic. I am working from home here from the DKI Jakarta. So Pak Immanuel, yes, PSBB is quite impactful for the course infection or adding information daily. And do you consider the range or the range of PSBB happen or occur, such as PSBB is not always a week. Sometimes PSBB is over a week, over 1 week, like 2 weeks, or maybe just only 5 days. Do you consider that?
Can you please clarify which PSBB? Because I don't really understand about the PSBB being implemented in some days or some weeks. Can you please clarify on that?
Yeah, I mean that PSBB is not always week 1 week. Sometimes we have PSBB in only on five days or over 1 week, like 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. Do you consider the range of PSBB itself?
Yes. So that's actually captured in the variable of interest. That PSBB measured in weeks is actually the let me share the descriptive statistics. Yeah. So it is actually measured since the beginning of the PSBB, which, if I'm not mistaken, the April 4th of 2020, and it lasts 8 weeks because it's continuously being prolonged, being extended. So it actually amounts up to 8 weeks, and yes, it has been considered here, and we have seen by from the results that actually additional weeks does not help with the effectiveness in Jakarta. Although I don't know about the currently the government employ a harsher, a stricter PPKM, which I think can fare a little bit better than the PSBB, but that is a subject of a future study.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you. Anyone else who want to ask questions to Mr. Immanuel or Bapak Immanuel? Okay, thank you, Bapak Immanuel. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Applause for Bapak Immanuel for his presentation. So we have to move to the next speaker. Today, we have Bapak Rimawan and Mas Putu to present their work. Let's get started. The floor is yours, Pak Rimawan and Mas Putu.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariska. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have a healthy condition, and a good day. And today, my name is Arya Wigita, and I, with Bapak Rimawan Pradiptyo, will present to you our book chapter regarding online-based social capital during pandemic and how to induce innovation by using the social capital by using of a case from SONJO, Sambatan Jogja, a social movement in Yogyakarta to fight COVID-19. The pandemic bring many detrimental effects to our life, and it is the perfect example where the nature is changing rapidly. With all of the restriction of the mobility and the crowd, it also hence affecting our economic life. Data from World Bank shows that the world is contracted for about 5.8%, and Indonesia as well has contracted for about 2% in 2020, according from data from Badan Pusat Statistik. And there are many problems that we're facing here for the perspective of VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And there is so much many things to address within the pandemic, and the most interesting aspect is there is a difference effect between of the pandemic between the developing countries and developed countries. Where I can to control the stuff. Okay, it creates recession across countries, and it brings detrimental effects and difference between developing and developed countries. And it is more severe to developing countries since they have less resources, for example, labor and capital. And I'm sorry, how can I control the slides very well?
I control it, sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Parma. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, since capital were very scarce during the pandemic, innovation can be an alternative source to support the economic growth, especially in short and medium term. And it is very unfortunate to us developing countries. We have a limited resources, and hence we have to pursue our own strategy, the most plausible strategy, which is utilizing the social capital to help each other. Next, please, Pak. Thank you very much. This is our literature review. From the perspective of mainstream economic discipline, it is proven that innovation catalyzes economic growth. We can see from solo growth model, from the TFP, the total productivity factor, and social capital contributes to innovation by reducing transaction costs between firms and other actors. And this is the most perfect example of social capital is family, where the relationship, where the bond, where the norm was bond so tightly, and thus it can minimize the transaction costs. Indonesia itself, as one of the developing countries, has adopted social capital as a strategy during many difficult situations. For example, when we face earthquake disaster in Yogyakarta, people started to help each other to build shelter, to provide medicine, and so on. And we also implemented the same thing in terms of social capital while facing the earthquake disaster at Gili Trawangan in 2018. And our point is it proved that during the difficult times, we always succeed to utilize our social capital to create innovation and to help each other. And collective action, research from Eleanor Ostrom shows that collective action in form of informal institutions, it can outperform formal institutions in establishing reciprocity and social capital. And this is we can show that SONJO is formed by social capital and can induce more social capital. So it can induce more innovation and hence support the economic growth. Next slide, please, Pak Rimawan. Okay, from the literature review and our introduction, this is our research question. By using SONJO as an example, how social capital can induce innovation during the crisis? And for the notes, this analysis is based on the development until the end of November 2020. And there are many changes since then, and perhaps maybe Pak Rimawan will explain to you later about our current situation in the SONJO. Next slide, please, Pak Rimawan. Okay, this is our first question, our first premise. COVID-19, is it a disaster or a war? As we know that COVID-19 is affecting all of us. So it is a common enemy for every single of us. It may take several years to fight these kinds of pandemic with all the waves, second wave, third wave. Indonesia is currently on the beginning of the second wave, and South Africa is currently on its third wave, so it is very unpredictable. And however, we have several strategies to measure. We have several dominant strategies. First, we have to expect the unexpected in terms of the impact of the pandemic. SONJO itself has a lot of discussion regarding the second wave, even before the second wave began. The second, thinking innovatively in terms of the alternative solutions. Since we have faced a dynamic situation within the pandemic, we have also to think innovatively and we have to think dynamically to address our current problem. And the last is resource mobilization, which is the most critical thing to prevent market failure. And I will explain to you how SONJO can mobilize our resources during the pandemic. Next slide, please, Pak Rimawan. Okay, from the game theoretical perspective, pandemic is an infinitely repeated game. Why we can say so? Because no one knows when the pandemic will end. No one knows. It is very different with finitely repeated games where every player knows when the game will end. If a player who perceives the game as a finitely repeated game meet the player who perceives this as infinitely repeated games, the latter will win the game. We can see from the example several years ago, many years ago, USA versus Vietnam and Union Soviet versus Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the government of Indonesia tends to perceive this game as a finitely repeated games with all the prediction, with all the policy that want to end this game as soon as possible. On the other hand, the academia tend to perceive this game as an infinitely repeated games, and therefore the strategy is always how to survive within this pandemic. Next slide, please, Pak Rimawan. Okay, from these infinitely repeated games, what is our rule for the next 2 until 3 years? The first, we need to focus on how to survive. And second, we need to create a small change every day. And the third, is creating a sustainable action for number 2, thus is creating a small change every day in order to make us survive and creating a bigger action and bigger change since we are accumulating those small changes. And the impact is even higher if we consistently doing these small changes during this difficult situation. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our current description that we are facing at the moment. We are all not in the same boat, but we have the same goal. We have the same objective. We need to survive and we need to overcome these kinds of situation, and we need to stay safe until the end of this pandemic. And therefore, social capital, since we are developing countries and we are embedded with such resources, is really can make a difference with this pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the most critical point, how to mobilize resources. If we break down the resources, Indonesia, there's 16% of the resources come from the state budget, from the government, and the rest come from the household and the businesses. It means that most of the money circulation, the transaction between goods and services is occur along the business and the households. And the small medium enterprises contribute to more than 50% of the economy. And hence, this SONJO is approaching more to household and businesses to make more transaction, to collect the suppliers and all the producers and connect them to the nearest suppliers. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a brief introduction for SONJO. SONJO is a humanitarian movement to minimize the impact of COVID-19, and it is formed on 24th of March 2020. At the first, SONJO is trying to shift the physical market into digital market, since pandemic is more severe, has bring more severe effect to physical market rather than digital market. And we use the simple kinds of technology, WhatsApp group, we use Excel, we use Google Form to collect and to connect all of the suppliers and all of the stakeholders within the Jogjakarta. And therefore, we can control and we can create a new transaction and a new way of life. And we also utilize behavioral aspect from Indonesia. As study shows, on average, individual in Indonesia spend more than 3.5 hours per day to using social media. And this is a big opportunity for SONJO itself to expand yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, how to develop social capital? SONJO is formed by social capital and developing social capital. Social capital is flourishing as long as there is trust. The trust is caused by two aspects, integrity and transparency, and therefore SONJO is formed by the activists, anti-corruption activists from Universitas Gadjah Mada, and therefore there's a kind of ethical situation and rules that is within the SONJO. Next slide, please, Pak Iwan. I will explain to all of the viewers. Okay, at the beginning, like I previously mentioned, SONJO were formed by the anti-corruption activists from Universitas Gadjah Mada, and they expand so rapidly. SONJO promotes anti-corruption from measures from KPK, and therefore there are several rules from SONJO. No money involved within the SONJO. There is no political interest and no conflict of interest, and also there is no abuse of power. And since the heart of SONJO is transparency and integrity, we share the credible and relevant information regarding the pandemic in order to assist the member in needs. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our learning curve. We came from the problem. There is a lot of problem during this difficult situation, and we sort the problem one by one. And once we can solve the problem, the most critical, the most prioritized problem, then we try to upscale our solution, and therefore we can implement our solution on the other areas. And therefore we can create the economics of scale by revising our solution. Okay, for the next slide, Pak Rimawan will explain to you what is the program of SONJO at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mas Arya. So this is the way to explain SONJO. So what is it, SONJO? It's we're trying to reduce the transaction costs basically by creating a public goods in 3 sectors: health, economy, and education. But then in this paper, what we're trying to put is just only some of the program in economy. So this is the evolution of the SONJO. It's at the moment, this is up until November 2020. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 WhatsApp group. But at the moment, we have already 24 WhatsApp group, and then we put it in the appendices. And we have a compliance committee. And why is it that we do have a compliance committee? Because we're trying to promote the transparency and also the integrity. And as we discussed before, it's the trust is paramount, because without any trust, at the moment our membership will not increase. At the moment we have 1,800 members, and it's increasing. So this is the information technology that we have. We have a start from a WhatsApp group, and then we have a database, then we have a website, apps, and etc. Now, so I just want to introduce some of the program in economy. In these circumstances, we have 4 programs, which is the first is the database, and the second one is called SONJO Ngabuburit. The third one is Etalase Pansar SONJO, and the last is SONJO Migunan. So what is the database? So this is the earliest stage of the SONJO, and we're trying to, we have a problem when we do have the PSBB, like Immanuel said, the process of PSBB at that time. And we don't know how to shop, basically. And then we trying to have the idea to create the database of SONJO Pangan. So we put in there, we just blast the information, and then is there any, we just put it in a Google form, basically, and Google Sheet, and that's it. So we have 26 of SMEs for food and culinary, 37 supermarket, and also 216 traditional market and culinary park. Secondly, that we have the SONJO Ngabuburit. Now, why is it that we do have this? Because it is in Ramadan, obviously. So during Ramadan, we allow our friends in SONJO Pangan to give advertisement in, just put a line, basically, in a WhatsApp. And then afterward, we blast to the 7 other WhatsApp. Then they increasing, their skills is increasing, because some of them also put the poster, and people start asking how to create the poster. And then we ask, okay, is there anybody who can create the poster? And then somebody said, okay, I can make a video on how to to create a poster in a Canva, for instance. And then we spread out the news. And then afterward, everybody using the poster, and more and more, sophisticated at that time. And we also extend the approach from WhatsApp to the social media, especially using the Twitter. So this is the way to conduct this. And so then, what is the impact? So this is the direct impact that we have. Some of the confession from our colleague. It is interesting to see what Bu Lilis Cahyani experienced, for instance, because she had a business she's a butcher, so selling beef, basically. And then at that time, during the pandemic, the sales dropped to 20 kilogram, from 1 ton to 20 kilogram. But she also has 5 employees at that time. And then when she joined to SONJO, and then it's the sale increases to 60. The second week become 240, and then the last week it become 350. And she started sending me a message. She said, "Thank you, Pak. Because of this, because of SONJO, I can pay the THR, to her employee." And then after the pandemic, after the Ramadan, of course, we have a discussion. So whether we want to extend we want to continue the program or not. And Pak Gumilang said to me, "No, of course, Pak, we have to change the name." And he introduced the Glides app. So the Glides app is basically apps for the book. What is that? Address book. And then from address book, we try to change that to be the showroom. So we have a showroom now for the small SMEs. Now, why is it that and at the moment, up until November 2020, it was 320 traders registered in the EPS. And APS is always free. I mean, everything in SONJO, it has to be free. We're not allowed to take anything. Now, why is it that we need to do this? Because we're trying to promote the digital transformation. We cannot do the marketplace, because if we do the marketplace, the system is quite sophisticated and we need to charge people. But this is against the SONJO rule. The SONJO rule means that everything should be free, because we're trying to reduce the transaction costs for the transformation of the technology obtained by the the SME. So in these circumstances, what we're trying to do is trying to create the etalase pasar SONJO. And you may need to know that most of our colleagues in the SMEs at that time, they have the smartphone? Yes. But how they utilize is just only using WhatsApp. They don't use the GPS. They don't even use the, creating poster or anything. So this is the situation that we have. So we need to give them some kind of a, upgrading their skills. So in these circumstances, by doing this, we're trying to promote them that they can shift from etalase pasar SONJO to marketplace. So if they can jump to etalase to the marketplace, voila, that is the outcome from us. Yeah, and also of course the increasing of the sales is also the outcome from us. So then we have the SONJO Mikunani. What is this SONJO Mikunani? This is a learning process within the SONJO community. So at that time, this is Pa Hanung Bramantyo, rest in peace. I'm sorry, he passed away last year. But before he passed away, he gave us a very tremendous contribution, which is telling us about how to do the vacuum frozen packaging. By doing this, and then we just give the opportunity in a Zoom, for instance, and then we blast it put it in a live live streaming, and also we put it in all of the materials in SONJO website, and then some of the SMEs also follow. What are the impact? It's just tremendous, because now many SMEs in SONJO, they are operating in Jogja, but their sales is through all Indonesia. They can send everything in Indonesia. Apart, they can have a satay, they can have a klaper tart, and all kind of stuff. So this is the way that we're trying to promote. So all of the SMEs in SONJO is actually survive, and even they have an increasing in their sales because of this some kind of And also we do have this virtual fashion show. This is the first fashion show that we do. It was in August, and we're trying to spread out the news through everywhere in the world. And then we have a link with KBRI, all of the ambassador in Indonesia, Indonesian ambassador abroad. We're trying to contact them and trying to promote the PPE. So this is some of the testimony in SONJO. We do also have what I call a SONJO observer. So SONJO observer is to those who are out of, is not living in Jogja, they become observer. They can stay 7 days to learn about how to interact in SONJO. And then afterward, we hope that they can open in their own community. Okay, so this is so basically what we're trying to do is it is proven that the synergy is working, and also it can help people to create the innovation and adaptation during the pandemic. I think this is from us. Please, if there is any question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rimawan and Mas Putu Arya for the presentation. Okay, anyone? Please raise your hand if you have a question for Pak Rimawan and Mas Putu. Okay, Pak. Thank you. I think I have a question for, it's not a question, it's an appreciation for Pak Rimawan and colleagues in SONJO. This is the best practice for social movement in Jogja. Do you think that the SONJO movement can apply can apply in other regions? Maybe.
Yes. Okay, so I will show you this. So this is the appendices. This is the 24 we are group of the SONJO at the moment. You can see the rapid increasing from in November we have how many? 8. Now we have 24. 4 of them not in Jogja. So we have what I call the one that I put in the blue is actually the joint WhatsApp group between SONJO and other communities. So first is in Lingkar Muria. It means this is in Pati. This is linked with our friends in Pati, Putu, Jepara, and also Demak. The other one in Bandung Raya means this is in Bandung and also in West Bandung. Yeah, and also we also have a link with some of the company as well. The first is in Auto, PT Auto. This is in Bogor, and also with Ancol. PT Ancol is just recently this Monday, this Sunday. Yeah. So this is the idea that I have to confess, using the SONJO observer, probably we fail on how to replicate SONJO elsewhere. But then this is the way we try to do. We try to combine the WhatsApp group. Some of the champion in SONJO, I invited about 30 of our champion in SONJO, and then match with them, and then introduce them how to work in SONJO. What is the problem? But actually, it's nothing to do with the culture. It's nothing to do with anything. The problem is in the mindset. Now, this is very interesting. Even with the company, they always asking like this. The same question asked. Even with the pesantren, they ask like this. What is our legal standing? So what is the base of the legal base that we are moving? And then I said, I'm sorry. 16 months or 17 months we exist, we don't have any legal standing whatsoever. We are OTP, organisasi tanpa bentuk. So just do it, because this is the way we're trying to help the government and we're trying to help the society. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This is very interesting. Yeah, legal standing is one of the basic, but somehow it's tackle some movement to improve our quality in economics, especially during pandemic. But one question, one more question from me. What's the basic or the core of SONJO movement? The core, what's the core objective from SONJO movement? Is it economy or just reduce the impact of pandemic? Is it on the economy or in health also?
So basically, back again. This is back again on the when we try to show the what is SONJO. So SONJO is organization, and in every organization you need to find out two things. One is what is your mission. The second one, what is the value? And our mission is basically trying to help vulnerable and people at risk in Yogyakarta, due to the pandemic COVID. What about the value? The value is transparency, integrity, transparency, empathy, and synergy, and that's it. So this is the way we work. We don't care how we work, but the most important thing is that between there is a link between the mission and also the value. This is the one that we always promote. Okay, so whether we are heavy, or at the moment we are heavier in health rather than in not in more in health, rather than in economy. For instance, if I show you, this is the program in economy, but in health it's just only 8. In health we have 12. It's more in here rather than more in health rather than in economy. Because if we cannot tackle the problem in health, don't expect too much that the economy will be flourishing. One of the basic assumptions in economics is that everybody in economy is healthy. But unfortunately, that kind of underlying assumption never been told to people outside of the economists. Thank you. Anyone?
Thank you, Arya. Anyone else, if you want to ask? Okay, there is a question from Ms. Ambarsari atau Ibu Ambarsari from UHAMKA. Given different educational and cultural background of SONJO participants, what's the most difficult challenge in introducing the benefit of SONJO to the new members?
We don't have any problem with it. We always trying to say that, look, this is based on the way we trying to understand what is the COVID. We always tell on and on that the COVID is the common enemy. The common enemy has a property like public goods, but in the is a common enemy. So that's in the other way around, which is still non-excludable and non-rival. Therefore, everybody will get a problem in this. So we have to work together in order to tackle the problem. So we can say at that time, we always say, don't ever think that you can tackle the facing the SONJO by yourself. We have to work together. Why? Because what we have is the common enemy, and the common enemy is actually the virus itself, and actually is our way of life, which is mobility and mobility and crowd, and we are far from being disciplined about this. This is what we're trying to do, and the member of SONJO is from everywhere. You know, many relawan, many kepala desa, camat, and we don't have any problem with that.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rimawan and Mas Putu. Our time has running out, so we have to move for third.
Thank you very much, Ariska.
You're welcome.
Ariska, maybe can I?
Oh, Pak Khairul Amin, have a question for
Yes.
Pak Rimawan?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Pak Rimawan. It's very nice presentation, Pak Rimawan and Mas Putu. Maybe I'd like to ask about the how to distribute the problem. If you meet the problem in each area or in each region in SONJO, how you can share the stage to anticipate the problem that in such economic or health or the others. What's the other file maybe?
Yeah, so it's everything is start from the problem that we have. We start from the problem, and we have two media to discuss with. So the only one media to discuss with. This is what I call SONJO Angkringan. So SONJO Angkringan is a weekly webinar that we try to accommodate what kind of problem that we have in each area, areas of sector and something like that. And then afterward, we invite the person you can discuss with it. So usually about 4 to 5 speakers and the moderator. And up until now, we always invited those who are. We never invited celebrities or anything. We only invite the expert. What does it mean by expert? People who knows the situation better. So if we talk about relawan, we ask the relawan. If we talk about the dana desa, we ask the Pak Lurah and also the narasumber from Kementerian Desa, for instance. So in these circumstances, we're trying to find raising awareness, and at the same time, we're trying to tackle the problem. Now, many of the as the time goes on, many programs in SONJO emerge because of the SONJO Angkringan. And how much do we spend for that? 0. We don't have to pay anything. We never pay anybody. Because this is our problem. This is our problem, and we don't have any cash. You know, in the first one we have our cash is 0. At the moment, our cash is also 0. Okay, so this is the situation. So the discussion is in the Zoom and also in WhatsApp group. We try to intensify the situation in there. So raising awareness, identifying the problem, and also putting some of the achievement is in there.
Okay. Is there any question, Pak Khairul Amin?
I think it's enough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presenters and for the participants to give us your questions. And next we have third presenter from Universitas Mataram, Bapak Mansur Afifi. Bapak? I think Bapak Mansur Afifi is not here. Okay. Wait. Okay, I think we have to wait for 2 minutes for Bapak Mansur to join us, our panel session today. We will wait for 2 minutes to give him opportunity.
Halo Mbak, ini karena Pak Mansur nggak ada ya?
Ya, silahkan. Siapa ini? Ya, betul. Betul, Pak. Mansurnya tidak ada.
I send a way out to him.
Okay. Okay. I have been give him 2 minutes for this opportunity to present his work.
Okay. but maybe he's not available. But he's not replying my WA, so maybe can have discussion on other issue or just close down.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Budi. Okay, so due to Bapak Pak Mansur Afifikan is not joining us today, so I think we have to. Oh, Pak Mansur has been joined with us, Pak.
Good.
Ya, selamat siang.
Selamat siang, Bapak. It's time to you to present your work, Pak.
Saya Who is the first, Mbak?
It's time for you to present your work, Pak. Pak Mansur.
I'm the first presenter.
We have two presenters previously, so this is your time. You are the last speaker today.
Thank you, Mbak Ariska. Would you please allow me to use this share screen?
Okay, wait. Siska, can you allow Pak Mansur? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all audience of the parallel session. How much time do I have, Ariska?
20 minutes to present your work and 8 minutes to question and answer section.
20 minutes? Okay. Okay. Let's allow me to present my paper entitled Impacts of the COVID-19 Pandemic on the Economy of West Nusa Tenggara Province and Government Policy. There are 8 aspects that I will highlight in this presentation, starting from background, objectives, methods, government policies, initiatives, effects of COVID-19 on social and economic indicators, survey of regional economies and economic perspectives, proposed regional recovery strategy plan, and policy recommendation. I hope we can accomplish all the aspects of my presentation. So let's move to the first aspects of presentation, namely background. We know that the first confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Indonesia was announced by President Jokowi on February 28, 2020. Since then, the COVID-19 pandemic spread to almost the whole country, including West Nusa Tenggara province, and confirmed cases of COVID-19 were firstly found on March 24, 2020 in West Nusa Tenggara province and continue to increase. Central government as well as regional government applied some measures to overcome the spread of the pandemic and to prevent the negative impacts of the pandemic. Measures such as large-scale social restriction, work from home, physical distance, and social distance have reduced mobility of people and production activities. This also measures such as provision for certain group of people, health care provision, and extra many brings many implication to the social and economic status of people in West Nusa Tenggara. Worker housing and layoffs also brings about the reducing of purchasing power as income decreases. And since the first quarter of 2020, several economic indicators have shown slower growth performance. Meanwhile, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 increased remarkably, which relatively high death rate. The December there are 288 people. Therefore, at the time, I mean, during the first semester of 2020, I would like to generally assess the implication of those measures on social and economics of the region. Specifically, the objectives of the study are firstly to describe the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the performance of economics and social aspects of West Nusa Tenggara province. The second one is to analyze regional government policies in dealing with COVID-19 pandemic by setting cluster and metric-specific impacts. And the third objective is to formulate policy recommendation for economics recovery efforts in the short and medium term. Method we use including descriptive statistic method and qualitative analysis, and the primary qualitative data, including the local government policies in dealing with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And also we use policies, consists of policies related to local government regulation, regional budget policies, and economic recovery policies. And we use also important performance analysis or Cartesian diagram to compare government performance indicators in dealing with the pandemic. Local government policies consist of institution of policies relating to local government regulation, reallocating regional budget policies, and regional regulation on controlling disease control on August 3rd, 2020, and economic recovery policies, how the government or regional government overcome the negative impacts of the pandemic on economic aspects. So this is the performance or the posture of regional budget in second quarter of 2020. Notice that there is changes in budget, especially in terms of income and also expenditure. And now we see that income increase and also expenditure increase, but government has policies to reallocate those budget to overcome the problem caused by pandemic. So although there is reduction in income and expenditure, government allocate public expenditure for handling COVID-19 in amount of 926 billion, and which are allocated for funding health affairs, prevent negative economic impact, and provide the social safety net. And the main question that raised is, what is the impact of COVID-19 on economics and social indicators? And to answer the question, we use economic and social indicators such as economic growth, unemployment rate, poverty rate, disparity rate, and inflation. So if we look at the development of economic growth, for example, we see that Western Nusa Tenggara experienced a contraction of economic growth, and since the second quarter of 2020, the economic growth negatively, or the contraction of economic growth in Western Nusa Tenggara. And but fortunately, there's a tendency of improvement of economic growth. So that by the end of 2020, even the economic growth was still negative, but there's a trend, the trend of improvement. So the property rate in the period of COVID increase, from, if we see the data in September 2019, the property rate was only 13.9%, 0.88%, and then by March 2020, the property rate increased to 13.97. So there's an increase in property rate. And also, if we look at further to the data on data of September 2020, so the property rate was more than 14%. The large-scale social restriction have weakened the economic activity, which further causes the property rate to increase slightly. However, data of property rate for the period of September, when I wrote the paper, has not been published so far. So the time we have only data until March 2020. But according to the latest publication, the property rate increased over 14%. And employment, of course, unemployment rate also increased. In September, for example, the unemployment rate was 4.20, higher than the situation in February 2020, in which the unemployment rate was 3.40. And the unemployment rate increased due to worker housing and layoff. disparity rate, the disparity rate is also increasing during the time of pandemic. Inflation, this is important information that inflation, we have a negative inflation, or we experience a deflation until June. And then after June, the situation is quite different, because we experience also inflation in a relatively high rate. For example, in November to December, we had inflation to 0.42. This is because of government budget expenditure increase significantly. That's normal behavior of regional budget in Indonesia, and by the end of the year, we spend more or much budget. And this is the situation in which we also think that pandemic has nothing to do with financial sectors, because credit increase as normal, credit increase. If we look at the situation in the end of 2019, the first quarter and the second quarter until the third quarter of 2020, when the pandemic is spreading very rapidly, credit also increased. There's no tendency to weaken the willingness of people to consume. This is because of the consumption rate increase at the time, so that the credit also increased. According to the report from OJK, most for the credit is dominated by consumption, not by investment or capital, working capital credit. So similarly, the situation in regional government-owned bank.
Sorry, Pak Mansur, you have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes left.
The economic situation is getting worse, and we look at the policy evaluation. We use important performance analysis to compare two things as indicators of government performance in dealing with the pandemic. And we also compare the confirmed case of COVID-19 with economic condition during the pandemic, and between economic condition and the policy existence. And each of the comparison will result 4 possibilities, which can be described in important performance metric or calculation diagram. This consists of 4 quadrants. And this is the situation in the Indonesia Tenggara Barat by the end of the second quarter of 2020, or by this first semester of 2020. So we see that the case increase, economic worse. If we compare the situation between confirmed case of pandemic and the economic condition. So case increase, economic worsen. And if we compare the situation between economic improvement and policy, so the situation West Nusa Tenggara experience economy is worsened, but there is a policy to overcome the situation. And And this is also noticed by most of academicians that we have been surveyed in the second quarter of 2020. And most of them believe that economic activities will increase by the end of 2020 and also by the year 2021. And purchasing power also will be better in 2021. And also business confidence will also increase in the end of 2020 and into the 2021. But we can argue now of whether the expectation of economists is true or not. And this is strategy of economic recovery, especially in leading sector, government development of local economic sector and micro and small business for inclusive growth and creating a lot of job opportunity with labor-intensive programs, priority programs such as industrialization, establishment of animal feed, construction of smelter, tourist village development, and development of special economic zone. And I think government also have strategy of regional recovery such as social safety net, health recovery, disaster resilience, and strategy of rebuilding the culture of mutual cooperation as a social capital for communities. Also, government increase regional origin revenues by extensification of revenue sources and intensification of collection. And also, government has reviewed the expenditure policies to increase the absorption rate and to optimize the role of public budget. And this is a regional recovery strategies plan. But we also find that economics it's becoming worse at the time, and government can not overcome comprehensively the impact of pandemic. So in this paper, we propose some policy recommendation for central government. For example, central government should continue to optimize the development of Mandalika Special Economic Zone so that its completion is on a schedule. And also the central government needs to continue to encourage PT Aman to accelerate the construction of smelters so that the added value of mining commodities can really be increased. And central government needs to accelerate the process of testing the corona vaccine so that it can be immediately used in the region so that normal post-pandemic condition can be realized immediately. This is the policy that we suggest or we recommend to government to overcome the situation of pandemic at the time, at the time of the first semester of 2020.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Mansur.
Okay.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone? Is there any question for Pak Mansur for his presentation? Anyone? Okay, Pak Mansur, I appreciate your presentation and your work and your articles. It convinced me, or I have a question for you, Pak. I think it's not quite related with your article. We know that PPKM has been applied only in Bali and Java. How about in West Nusa Tenggara? Is the condition in West Nusa Tenggara controlled today? Yes, Pak.
Yeah, PPKM was implemented in West Nusa Tenggara on Monday. So starting from yesterday. So we also experienced PPKM in West Nusa Tenggara, yeah, because the case, confirmed case of pandemic increased rapidly during the last 2 weeks. So the regional government also implement the measure of we call PPKM.
Okay. Okay. I think I have one question for you, Pak. From your paper, from your article, said that you also asked economic experts to give their recommendation. Are the recommendations can be applied in 2021? Which, since we know that the recommendation only asked in 2020. If I'm not mistaken. Hello, Pak Mansur. Okay, I think he is in trouble with okay. Okay. Okay, I think Pak Mansur have a trouble in the internet. So we have done to our 3 presenters today. So thank you for your participation and see you the next time.